All right, welcome to the Forge Coffee Break. This is the episode number 57. Thank you very much for joining today. As usual, this is a very open space for any topics or questions that you may have or projects that you're working with. And as usually, let me start with you. If you have any topics or projects that you're working on, questions that you have. Last week, we did have AU, and I suspect that some of you went to New Orleans last week. So, hopefully it was exciting and saw the big announcement about Forge renaming to Autodesk Platform Services, APS. And yeah, and if you haven't heard, I have these as well. So
nice.
The
only thing is missing the picture. We need to change the platform services coffee break.
Oh yeah, we have to do that as well. There are so many things to change, and yeah, probably have to rename the coffee break as well. Thanks already. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, maybe we can change it to tea break.
Tea break.
Yeah, you say that you need to change the name coffee break. So
yeah, but but it depends on the time zone, right? I guess in my side here in Denmark, I mean it's tea time, but I guess in US time it's coffee time.
Yeah,
we find the middle solution.
Yeah, I have to find something, right?
Yeah, it will be a lot of work. Just changing name. It sounds simple, but still in reality there are a lot of things. Yeah. I just, the one thing, August, you may have something in mind, but one of the reasons why I joined is that I had a couple of last minute messages from the factory at the Autodesk side, and my class is relatively small, so I just thought that somebody might be interested in just hearing the tip. So maybe toward the end,
What do you mean by class?
So so for instance, we announced about the design automation for LVII now support the cloud work shared model. Yay!
Yay!
That's big news.
So you can set up. You can set up cloud work shared model automatically and things like that. And looks like I already got a question. And some customers already wishing to do that. So you create empty project in ACC, and then you just use the design automation to set up everything. So yeah, so that's one. And another thing is
I have a question on that. Can we use design automation to manipulate those files as well?
What do you mean by files?
So I have a file that is work shared, right? And before that, I have to disconnect from Central. Now I can use those models when they are work shared.
Oh, yes. So you can call like synchronize with the Central.
Oh, okay. So yeah. I have to check out, do my changes, and then synchronize with Central.
Yeah. You can do that. So basically, you can edit Revit model without having the file, the uploading to docs. You still need Publish if you want to share.
Sorry, say again.
So right up until this support is available, you have to download the file and do something and upload, right? Now you can access directly to the Revit model. So that means that if you want to share this one published, then you have to call API, publish to docs API.
Okay, and when I specify the file to the activity, how do I point to my file in BIM 360?
Activity. You mean activity log?
Yeah, so I have to trigger design automation, right? How can I specify which file I want? I have to just pass the URL. Sorry if that's too deep, but I was just curious how that would work.
Yes, yes, there will be a GUID, so you have to use that one. And if you
Okay.
want to create so if you go to design the data management API, you can find which one is cloud shared model, right?
Mm-hmm.
And underneath, there must be a special attribute to get this GUID ID. So you can use that to open in the backend.
Oh, okay.
You know, the file type is, I forgot exactly what it says, but there is a special attribute you can tell if the file is Revit file, the cloud shared file, or simple file uploaded one. So you grab, so I will, actually not me, Son already wrote a draft of a detailed one and then with a sample. So I was a little bit behind because I was busy last week, but we will be publishing this shortly, hopefully this week. So I just wanted to give you a heads up because we didn't have like a big announcement or anything last week. So I just wanted to mention that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But Augusto, as you know me, I could start with questioning now. I got
Yeah, go
two
ahead.
questions. So the first question I asked actually in Stack Overflow, but I didn't get the accurate answer about. So technically, I'm located in Denmark, and I guess most of you they know about me. And then sometimes I act as a help the other customer about integrate Forge. I collaborate sometimes with Peter Shelf, and he's in Germany. So I have a lot of companies here in Nordic to show them Forge and how they could use it, the best practice. And so I got a lot of questions from those, let's say, general contractor. Mainly, they want to build their own product. They don't want to depend on other product. So one of the questions that if they have a Revit file, they push it and they translate it, but afterwards, is it possible to move it to their own bucket if they are using AWS private S3 bucket or GCP or Azure? So they could pay for the job, they translated the model, and then afterwards they want to move it. So they don't want to be dependent on Forge. So that's the first question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and why would they need that? Why would they need to move to their own S3 bucket? Is there a specific reason for that?
Yeah, but for instance, some of the client they have their own platform, right? They do the file sharing and all that stuff, and they're already using Amazon S3. So basically, instead to upload the Revit file to Forge S3, so they could upload it to their S3, and then they could point the model derivative API to translate it that the file is still located in their side. So I'm not sure if that's possible.
So I was wondering if there is a latency or privacy thing going on, but it's just a preference, right? From what you were saying. Okay, cool. Okay, so to answer that, right? When you have to translate a file, it needs to be on our infrastructure, meaning our bucket or wherever we store the file, right? So you have to send the file to us. Now the question, the point there is that we can store the data for you, or we can just process the data for you, and then you can delete that, right? So remember that with SVF, you can translate a file and then download the viewables, so you can view it offline in our perspective, right? Because it's still online for you, but it's offline from ours. So, but the downside is that once you do it, we cannot maintain that for you. So if we need to do some updates or improvements in the future, now you lose all of that, right? For instance, SVF2 is an update, and so we don't have that for SVF2. No, easy to do because SVF works with WebSocket. There's a lot of infrastructure behind it.
Yeah.
So yeah, bottom line, translate the file, download the viewables, and then you can store on your storage and then use from there.
Yeah. So Abed, I'm going to give you a short answer, which is yes, you can do that, but you take on a lot of long-term responsibility that can become a bit of a mess.
Yeah, I mean, for me, if it's personal, subjective, I would love to keep it there for you because I could gain all the nice features you implement from every while. I mean, but what I can advise them that They keep the file there. They could take the URN and then they could link the URN in their own local database. So they could access the files by the URN for each file. So that means they own it, but based on URN. That means they save also for storage. They don't pay for the storage.
Yeah.
So that's the first question. Good answer. The second question, like in this industry, almost 60 to 70% still out there, they're still using 2D drawing, right? They don't use all of them. And most the client, they would like, today they are using Bluebeam and other software just to do iteration, to do measurement for the rooms. But basically, if we have the Revit model, right? And then when you want to translate it, you could generate the room size, I guess. So if I can't remember where once I used it a couple of years ago, but I can't remember how to find again the documentation, just to add a param when you want to translate the file. So you could generate the room. So that means you could use the metadata to get the price for the total area. So you can do it in very automated way. Instead, you go and then you select, you pick up the wall, and then you create your own area. And
yeah, so you're talking about rooms in the translation, right?
Exactly.
Yes, so you have to use extract master, generate master views.
Okay, is it mentioned in the new documentation?
It's there. Oops, let me share something here quickly, and you get something like this here, right? So a room. What is going on here? Give me a sec. Okay, and you get this, right? So you have all the rooms on your building.
Yeah.
If you select one of them, you can see level, limit, and somewhere in here, the area.
Exactly. But to generate a room, I guess you need to do something special when you translate the file.
Yes.
As I remember.
Yeah, let me get this here. I'm showing sometimes more derivative. And it's generate master view, but I'll get you the precise piece. Jobs, job. Output, not destination, sorry, it's under RVT, right? Give me a sec.
This is
No, it's not
IFC.
advanced. Yeah, but this
it's case 3. Just go down a little bit more.
Yeah,
Case
thank
3.
you.
Yeah, and then advanced.
Okay.
And then generate
yeah.
master views. Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, no
I was
problem.
getting there. I wasn't
Yeah, it's hard to find
almost there.
sometimes.
Yeah. And also, does it work for 2D or only 3D?
It works for Revit files, right?
Okay.
So
but if
what we'll do is it will create one 3D view with all the elements, including rooms.
Yeah. But
so it's only 3D though. It's
Okay.
only 3D.
Okay.
So
Okay.
the master views are actually 3D views to start with.
Exactly.
In Revit. Yeah.
But anyway, once you catch the area, you could multiply by the price based on the room type, and then you get it. It's much easier to do it. Instead, today you are using those softwares here and there, and then spend a lot of hours to do iteration. So if you just,
So
thank you so much.
I was just saying because when you have a Revit model, the Revit model is 3D, right? And even if you only have 2D views on your model, this will create one extra 3D view with that information, just to be very precise.
Exactly. I was just thinking about something else for 2D, but I don't think for today the model derivative engine could support it yet. Let's hope in the future if it's reading like 2D stuff. But thank you so much. And Jim, I'm so glad to see you and hear your voice here. You did so great in the Autodesk. I was watching it online. I couldn't manage to get a visa, but let's hope in coming years we can do it.
Hey, Abed, just for, I'm going to get in trouble here, but we're having a bit of a debate if we're going to run an Autodesk Platform Services, formerly known as Forge, accelerator in Copenhagen. Maybe.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So we could be quite close to you with, people like Jaime and Peter, and we'll see if we can pull that off.
Yeah, I would be very happy to contribute and help you in whatever you want or you need here.
Thank you.
Adding back to this area things, if you have a Revit model, you can always specify area and then rooms, right? In 2D, you can put the tag in Revit. That one is the extracted too, even in 2D. So just FYI.
Oh yeah, that's interesting, right? So you put a tag that is auto-filled and auto-updated with the area. Yeah, that's true.
So only tricky thing is, the translation is, picking up only the geometry data. And if you put this room, X and room number, room name.
Yeah, exactly. The tagging, yeah.
In black, transparent way, then translation doesn't recognize. So the trick thing is you can put the color to the each room representations, just like we have samples in Revit, simple house samples. Then you can even click on that and recognize as a geometry. So this is one of the trick we get the question every once in a while. So you may want to play with that too.
And Makaka, what you just said translated, you mean model derivative will pass that room 2D information through?
Yeah, so room information is translated, but you cannot click or you cannot choose because there is no geometry data if it's transparent.
Got it.
If you put the color, then there is a, the two-dimensional color geometry, right? Then you can click.
That's a cool hack.
That's a hack, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the easier things to, if we could generate them by the model derivative, the response with all this nice structure metadata, but I don't think we can do it with this yet. So that means you don't need to use the 3D viewer at all. You can build a nice chart with one single API call. And
what do you mean? I mean, you want to query the data in different ways?
yeah, if you just want to query the data without the 3D viewer, use just model derivatives / properties, or now you're doing the querying that is still in test, I guess. So if you just mention you want the room, so you query the room, you get them, and then you just the type of the rooms, and you just multiply them by the price, and then you get it so fast. So because today, in AEC, especially as a contractor perspective, not design phase, build phase, and operation phase is very, very manual stuff. But all of it could be very automated in the future. But still,
just to complicate your life.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure data exchange puts out room information.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's automated, right? Because you can have a connector for, let's say, Excel, right?
Yeah.
To update the data for you.
Yeah, I mean, you could put the webhook, could listen to something change, you push it to the database. You could merge a lot of technology here and there.
Yeah, we're getting there. At least central data, right? Really up to date. So getting there closer and closer.
I mean, Jim, I remember we talked about HFM, like high frequency data management. We talked about it when you visited us in Copenhagen 3 years ago, and you told me the world's not ready yet to have one central data. If you move something here, it moved the other way. Today, you could see it in Spotify, in Google Docs, but one day it will arrive to the 3D.
It's there in data exchange right now, and the AEC cloud information model, I think mid next year this will be all, well, it's easy today with data exchange, and it'll be kind of more expansive yet, come I think mid next year. Though I need to be careful, we as software developers, you always have to be careful about version 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Talking about version, I think I mentioned that last week, but I would just want to mention again because it's so important, right? We announced this option in Revit to have versions when you translate a Revit model, meaning that so everyone will always be on current, but you can always experiment with next or fall back to previous if something changed and you don't want that change for some reason, right? So if you don't do anything, you always be on current. That will keep moving and changing. And what I mean by change is that to do a Revit translation, behind the scenes, we have Revit, right? And as you know, Revit has some patches, has some fixes. Even that Revit is running on a Windows somehow instance, all right? And maybe you have to patch the Windows instance, and that may affect something else, right? So I don't know, a lot can happen, right? So you are always on current. But if there's something that's not working for you, you can always fall back to previous, and you can experiment with next. So let's say when we release update 1, 2, or 3, whatever of Revit, you can, before that, you can experiment with the next channel. So that's available since the beginning of September. I think I mentioned before, but just to emphasize how that important that is. And that should prevent people from losing the workflow they have, because they can just quickly fall back to previous. So what you have to do is adjust your translation. If you do translations, right, you can add this advanced extractor version and have that on current or just empty, right? And have that coded in your application as an environment variable. So you can, or something like a configuration, right? That you can quickly switch to previous as a click of a button, just to switch to previous in case you need to use a fallback option.
That's very, very great, because I remember 2 years ago or 1.5 years ago, so we talked about how to compare 2 versions together, and back then wasn't like the Exchange API to compare the version. But I learned there were a trick in the URN of the viewer. If you encode it, so the last 8 letters, it show you the version. So say version something, and then you change the version, and then you decode it, you encode it again, and then you translate. So you read which version in the in the viewer.
So this isn't really about versions of Revit. This is
Yeah.
about the fact that the Revit translation engine that Model Derivative uses changes. We do patches almost every month. And for a lot of people, they're using Model Derivative for, a dashboard. And if we make a change and it happens to break your app, it's annoying, but not a big deal. But we have other people using Model Derivative with Revit to run prefab, fabrication, job shops. And if we make a change and it breaks, there's 10,000 people standing around unable to work.
Exactly.
So we had to make it much, much more reliable. So now we have this versioning. So you can build into your code, if something's wrong, you can do a fallback to the previous version of the translator. Or, if we go down, you as a developer can go, oh shit, and I'm going to change this piece of code. And in 5 minutes, using the previous version, and your customers are happy.
Yeah. And I believe everybody have been using GitHub. He will understand what does it mean.
Yeah, yeah. Just to add a note here, right? What you're saying about that in BIM 360 you have versioning, right? So if you upload the file to BIM 360, that is version 1, 2, 3 of that file, right? And that's the version for a specific item, right? So what we're talking about in that case was that if you go to an item and say get versions of that item, item versions, right? You get all the versions. The URN of that version is base64 encoded, and this is the URN here.
Yeah. And
you can see, as you mentioned, right, if you get the URN and decode, you see this question mark version 1, 2, 3, 4.
Exactly.
And if you in base64 encode again, you get the URN, right? So that's not actually changing the version of the translation; it's changing the version of the file that is behind that. Well, with that, this option should change the version of the translator. It's only available if you post translation, right? If you're making the post job, because if the file is hosted in BIM 360, we do the translation for all the files, right? So you don't have the control in BIM 360. This is just for buckets when you upload and you translate the files in the bucket.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting point. That was we're waiting for it for a long time, so it was good to have that feature now with versioning. So William, you have a question there. Is there any documentation blog on how to change materials for a component in the viewer? Yes. What kind of changes are you trying to do, William? Would you like to open your microphone? William?
Hello?
Yes.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so actually, I just want to change a material. For example, for a door in a real model, I want to change that materials in Force Viewer.
Okay, is that material already there, or you're just trying to adjust it?
Yes, I have already created that materials, but I don't know how to add that materials to somewhere so that the Forge can use it. So I know there is a difference between the Forge and the 3GS, right? So we can do that easily in 3GS, but I don't think that's the way that works in Force Viewer.
Okay. And okay, so I remember we worked with a playground, and by chance the two people involved in that are here. So so this is a playground where you can play with the viewer, right? And I remember we have a get material and paste material. Does it work here? Can I do this?
Yeah,
I
it
believe I
works.
can,
You
right?
can change. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I did
And
here.
pick
Okay,
a-
so let me pick this element and press C to copy the material, and then select this element here and press P to copy to paste the material. Let me press P. Now this glass is now this weird thing here that is like a wall. So yeah, you can copy the material from one element or get that material from one element that is defined. And remember that in the viewer, you have you only extract what is visible. So the material must be there before you can actually copy that, right? So the two functions that you need are get material and set material. And gets right here, and you say frag gets material, and to set the material is right here. And you can experiment in the viewer in the playground. So if I go back to the beginning of this playground, playground.autodesk.io, this is still in beta, we're still working on it. But to select one of the elements, select one of the pre-existing codes, or you can just type on your own code, right? Well, I'm getting this one here, custom geometry. And there is some stuff here, but essentially it allows you to do this interesting thing here, copy and paste. And here's the code on how to do it. You can make changes and try again and play with that. So it should allow you to see results of your code in the viewer when you type on the left.
But here I have a question. So to my understanding, there could be multiple fragments on a component. How can I tell which one is which?
Well, it can also be multiple materials in one component, right? So let's say you have a door. You can have wood and metal, right? So you have to find the specific element you're looking for.
Okay.
So what we can try to do here is that I believe that material console log material, right? And let me open the console log. Let me resume this and select this guy again. And if I remember, was copy, right? So copy. Oops, not this. Come back here. Yeah. Come back in the viewer and I press C. Do I have a console log? Oh, I have to reload, sorry. So I did some change on the code to output the material information on the log, right? Now let me select my element and press C. Oh, come on, help me here. It's not letting me do this here. Let me try. Oh yeah, see, that's the material right here. And you see that the material should have something like information that you can use to extract, define which one you want. So probably have to go through all the fragments you have and I don't know, use some of that information to define, is that the material you're looking for?
Okay.
And I advise you to use the web worker to do this operation because I've been working on similar things. The browser will be if the model is a little bit big. So you just use the web worker.
Cool. So okay, we are just on time, and I don't want to go too long here. So let me share this.
Oh, just remember the accelerator in 2 weeks from now. We have a virtual one, so people can join us if you are working for APS.
Yeah, what's the name of that one, John?
Sorry?
What's the name of the next accelerator? What is the name
Kansas
of the
City
next
Accelerator. We have at
Kansas
the
City,
same
right?
time on site and virtual one. So it's Kansas City.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So now it's getting interesting because we're having on-site. If you want to go to Kansas City, it's still open, and virtual, same Kansas City virtual. And yeah, should be interesting. How, yeah, week and a half, right? Thank you. Yeah. All right.
Exactly.
So with that, thank you very much for joining today. The next coffee break will be during the accelerator. So hopefully we have the people joining in Kansas City and virtually to join the coffee break as well. And that's it. Thank you very much for joining today, and see you in 2 weeks.